The Shiur today and every week is sponsored L'ilui Nishmas Rav Avraham Chaim ben Rav Sholom Zal, Mar Zisel Bas Rav מאיר Zev HaKohen Zal, Sholom ben Rav Chaim of Avraham Zal, Yitzchak Meir Zev ben Rav Avraham Chaim Zal, Mar Sar Biylא Bas Rav leyb Zal. They should all have Elias on the show.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? If someone wants to volunteer to come at 9 o'clock, about 15-20 minutes before the Shiur, and set up the camera, I'll work with them on the phone every single week. It'll be a great help.
Okay, I think I need the camera here. All right. Back here? No. We are learning in the Tzidkas Hatzadik, Ois Reish Chav Zayin.
Recording in progress.
And here we're going to circle around back to Aleph where we started, but let me just go over the few lines we went over last week. And I think everybody's got the idea that if anyone thinks this is kind of like relaxed, easy listening Torah, this is serious things that without any, without patronizing everyone, you really have to memorize this and learn it and write it down and get it right. That's what I have to do. Kol Yisrael yesh lehem emunah shlema b'Hashem Yisparach. They want to see me.
This is okay.
This doesn't help.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Kol Yisrael yesh lehem emunah shlema b'Hashem Yisparach. That says the Tzadok that we're born with a level of emunah in Hashem. Bimtziyusai, and these are the three wonderful things that we're all born with. Bimtziyusai, v'achdusai, v'ashkachasai. That a Jew is born, and we'll discuss in a minute what happens after you're born, how we mess this up. But the Nefesh Yisrael, a Jew is born, this is often referred to like a Yiddish neshama or the Pintel Yid, or whatever you want, whatever Hasidic term you want to give it. The site is, and he proves that a Jew is automatically born with a emunah in mitziyusai, achtusai, hashgachasai. Mashamru b'Shabbos, this is a Mefurish Gemara in Shabbos, Shem maminim b'nei maminim. And that's what we talked about last week, that Avraham Avinu and Yitzchak and Yaakov brought into the world a certain level of emunah. There's a lot to say about that, but let's suffice it to say right now that there's a certain level of emunah that they brought into the world, and now it's in our spiritual DNA. Shem maminim b'nei maminim. V'zeh nikra, yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay, we're back on.
Yeah, somebody's trying to say something, yes? V'zeh nikra, and this is where we're at. This is going to take us to a beautiful, beautiful place. Difficult but beautiful. Let's do the words. V'zeh nikra, this emunah that we're born with, nikra, that's referred to as nefesh de kedushas b'nei Yisrael. This is the lashon of the Zohar. V'zacha, does everybody have it inside? Because I want to be medayik here. V'zacha yatir yavin le rucha. V'zacha yatir yavin le rucha.
Can you tell us where you are?
I did. Reish Chav Zayin. Okay.
3 lines down.
What does it mean? Chaim, what does it mean? V'zacha yatir yavin le rucha.
Someone clears his
Nice.
clears himself more, and we'll get to the root.
Your mamish didn't fall into my trap. In fact, my Tzidkas Hatzadik has a nekudos, and I think the nekudos might be wrong. V'zacha means what? The words v'zacha? If he purifies it. Nizdachech. Lizachech. Zchuchit is glass. Zach is pure. Shemen zai is zach. Now, it could be etymologically that the word zechut or zeiche is all connected to that. This is not my discussion right now. But what he means here, what the Zohar means here, that zacha yatir yavin leruach. Here's a Jew with a nefesh. He's got this nefesh. We're born with it. I would say you're born with very, very high capacity, because the Gemara says, and I might get back to this in a minute, the Gemara says that uber b'yerach imai, uber b'mei imai, that a child before he's born, when he's in his embryonic stage, in utero, so he's learning kol HaTorah kula, the Gemara says in Nida Daf Lamed. Roya misoif oilam v'ad soif oilam. He's got tremendous amount of capacity. So you're born with this nefesh. Zacha, but if you purify the nefesh, yatir yavin le ruach, then Hashem gives you that nefesh a ruach. Remember the Seder? Nefesh, ruach, neshama, naran. Hainu, what does it mean? Explains Reb Tzadok, kishmizdache chalev yoiser, that if you are mizachech, and here you have it, if you purify your lave beyond what you're born with, ad shehu margish ze balev, until he feels it in his heart, uba mi madregas emuna lemadregas emes shehu hadavar habar v'nikar lalev v'loy be'emuna levad. That is a very, very strong sentence. It's a very strong sentence. He says that we're born with a nefesh. We can deal with. The Zohar tells us we can purify it to the place of ruach. Nefesh, ruach. When you're doing so, now look at the words carefully. Ba mi madregas amuna lemadregas emes. Wow, who knew there's a difference? Emes v'amuna, emes v'yatziv. What's amuna? What's emes? Emuna means I believe it. Emes means I know it. At night, as I said last week, the Goyen explains, we say emes ve'amuna, because it's dark and you don't know what's going to be in the next step. But I believe, I trust, I have faith in Hashem, emes ve'amuna. By day, and the day is metaphoric to when things are clear in my life, emes ve'yatziv v'nachem v'kayim v'yasher v'nemon v'ov v'chavi v'nechman, etc. It gets until Yafa, until how beautiful it is. So what's happening is that when we go from the madrega of nefesh that we're born with to the madrega of ruach, which is nizdachech yoiser, when we put ourselves through a purification process, Hashem should help, we should understand how to do this in life. But when we put ourselves through this purification, we move from emunah to the madrega of emes, from believing it to the madrega of knowing it. And a little bit further, kishenizdachech yoiser, and you further purify, I know it. Now, let me just ask you something. When we say now I know it, do I know it in my heart, in my brain, in my kidneys? Like, where do I know this? How do you understand this? I know.
He says love.
Lave. Not yet here. Like when anybody here, or at least most of the people here, would look at their father, say, I know you're my father. So was that, did you take a statistical analysis? Is it the pshat, like the Gemara says, Roiv Bilois Hailach Acharav? Or is it the pshat, I just know you're my father, I don't have any something, could be wrong, but it's yediyah. That's called yediyah. But it's not called intellectual yediyah. That would be Roiv, Birur, DNA testing, something like that. It's called yediyas halev. Very, very important to know that our yediyas Hashem, v'yodata es Hashem elikecha. We have to know Hashem. What does it mean? Does it mean that we're going through this kind of like, philosophical journey until we know Hashem? It could be. Or does it mean yediyah b'leiv? Yediyah b'leiv is what we're talking about here today. Taking something from the madrega of emunah to the madrega of emes. Ukishenizdachech yoiser, and if you purify even further, Zoicha l'neshama shebemayach. Then you could be zocha to the neshama in my moach. I said last week, everyone says neshama. Maybe this is neshama. How do you know where your neshama is? Or neshama is your whole self. But neshama shebemoach means your power, your intellectual power. You've changed your thinking. So it's a different level of yediyah, which is called in all Kabbalistic language, neshama shebemoach. Dehainu, and he explains this clearly, mitzad hachochma lahachkim ba'asagas helikus. This is chachma. So keep track of where we are. We went from emunah to emes, that's good, emes, to chachma.
This is the same as Ma'aseh Dibur
Dibur Ma'aseh Machshava. We'll get there. All the trifectas are the same. But let's do one more line before I try to explain this a little bit more. The classic Rav Tzadok sentence. V'i efshar lahasig neshama koidem leruach. That you can't skip. If you're not a nefesh, you won't get to ruach. If you're not ruach, you won't get to neshama. And as he explains further, and if you don't have nefesh, ruach, neshama, if you don't go through that process, which I'd like to talk about for a minute, but if you don't go through that process, you just come in over here, then you've got nothing. And there's further. It's nefesh, ruach, neshama, shema, neshama. It goes further and further and deeper into what a person can become in this world. Nothing less than what all of our avodah is to become in this world. But you can't skip. This is Reb Tzadok L'Shitasai, why we're learning this here. Why we're learning Reish Chav Zayin, is because this is the Loi Beruach Hashem, Loi Berash Hashem, Loi Be'esh Hashem, Kol Zemamadaka. This is the Nevu of Yecheskel Hanavi. This is the Nevu. This is everything that we've talked about. You can't skip.
You shouldn't skip.
You're not. It doesn't. Oh, so he tells you what happens if you skip. Ubevadai. Here's what happens if you skip. Ubevadai ein ze chachmas Hashem yisbarach sheshefei Eloi al yedei nishmasei klal. If you do skip, listen, I just want to get to this transformative place of transcendence and be close to Hashem. Shtusim. Because there's what you don't know what you're getting there. What do you take? It's not, if it didn't go through the nefesh, the ruach, and the neshama, mi yodema, who knows what I'm accessing? Kedusha, Tumah, Shtus, Amaratzas, we don't know. We don't know. This is the path. Rak, it's only that kishazacha koidem leruach hachiyuni shebelev. It's only after you get to the place of, you take your nefesh and you bring it to ruach, which is alive in my heart. Sheyeh margish ba mitus elikus, and I come to a place of emes. And then he likens it. Neshama loshin neshima. Neshama is like breathing, yeah? Mashenoshem haruach ba'apav. Ruach, neshama. Ikar chiyas haruach rashatzar. We live by our breathing in the physical world, in our biological world. We live by breathing. But it's an interesting thing. Sarach b'chol pam l'neshimas ruach chadash. Why do we have to keep on breathing? Breathe once. Take a deep breath when you're born.
Should keep your heart beating.
Yeah. What's the problem? We don't have to turn on our heart every day, or we don't have to. There's some things we just always have to do. One of them is breathing, and it's the same thing with the neshama.
Feeds the leyv.
And it feeds the leyv. Very good. Ruach feeds the leyv. Your heart wouldn't be beating if you didn't breathe. The problem is in halacha, pronouncing somebody dead, shalom, is the avodah of testing his neshima. It's not about the leyv. It's not about the brain waves. You can be brain dead, even heart dead. We see today, they revive people. But when you're not breathing, you're not breathing. I mean, maybe you could still revive people and get them to breathe again, but the Shulchan Aruch's death is dying al pi halacha. If you want to die al pi halacha, it's breathing. It's all about breathing. The breathing is the chiyus, and that has to do. But that's a mashal. Let me go backwards a little bit. there's a, if you want, you can follow it, or just, we can do it outside. If you go into the Tzidkas Hatzadik back to Reish Ches, in Reish Ches, he once again speaks about the different levels. He's talking about the fact that that Ashrei Yoshvei Veisecha works in a Seder of Aleph Beis. And the reason for that, he explains, is that, as we know, the world was created b'chaf beis oisiyos. And the Seder of the world, Ashrei, it's the Seder, that's the Chashivas of Aleph Beis. But there he says, the world was created, right? I'm quoting Rav Tzadok. Aval misha yotza midimyan zeh midas emesu. When we just remain in nefesh, we're going with emunah. You're very fragile. You're very susceptible to mistake. Very, very possible to get it wrong. You have to get it to the place of emes. And he writes here, I'm just quoting Rav Tzadok, Zehu ben olam haba b'hoiva v'hakara gemura v'loi b'b'tichus. I quote this because it's the same idea. Hakara gemura v'loi b'b'tichus. Emunah and emes, those are the two categories we have in front of us. Emunah is, I believe it to be true. It's not yet hashivoisel of avecha. It's not yet become an emes in my heart. That's what he calls, his word for this is betichus. When I have emunah without emes, I haven't been ma'ames this emunah. So it's called betichus. Betichus is like a lashon of betachon. I trust it is true. Say a witness comes into court. I believe it's true. Nobody's asking for your judgment. We're talking about Riyah. Misha yatsa midimyain. Listen to his language. If you, quoting from Reish Ches, Misha yatsa midimyain. If you can leave your imaginative thoughts and go to a place of emes, he calls emunah imagination. Like you could, we have it, but we don't know what it is. But if we bring it into emes, so zeh midas emes. Zehu, and this is what I loved. Zehu ben olam haba behoive. Like we always talk about ezehu ben olam haba. 34 lashonos in Chazal. Ezehu ben olam haba. Who is a ben olam haba? What do we think it means? That, okay, you're going to go to heaven. Ezehu ben olam haba, Reb Tzadok teaches, doesn't mean that at all. It means that you're living not only in olam hazeh, but you're living in the emes of olam haba also. It means to say that an olam hazeh dikiyid is limited in what they can see. If I'm an olam haba dikiyid, right here. So the further I can get to that, like olam haba means eternity. Olam haba is emes. I'm integrating emes into this. What's olam haba called? The olam or emes. So if I could take the emes of olam haba and integrate it into my life, so then I've come to the place of, I've gone out of the place of emunah, I've come to the place of emes. A hove, present. Chaye olam nota b'seichen. Beautiful. Ki emunah, I'm just to say it again, he says in Reish Ches, Ki emunah, when you talk about emunah, pirush betuchais, shemamin b'chaye olamim. I'm pretty sure it's true. I believe in it. Aval emes, hu shemavurer la'ayin ve'ein sarach betuchais. If you have the emes, you don't need to believe in it because you know it. You know, I often wonder, nobody really knows what madrega they're on. But, you know, didn't the Gemara, somebody says, B'yovid avodah zarah, I'm going to kill you. Bow down or I kill. I think we all like to believe that, of course, we would say, kill me. Would we? alibademis, if I shouldn't be megala this to people, but if you say, if you bow down, l'chayim misa, oinus rachmana patri. But you have a mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, the right thing to do. The only person, I think, that, first of all, nobody's going to do this. Nobody's going to do this if they don't have a nefesh Yisrael. First thing you have to have is a nefesh. And if one comes to the madrega, goes from emunah, like why do Jews do this? I mean, Jews during the Spanish Inquisition did this, even though they were Amharatza. Teretz is nefesh. They were born with this, achdusai, mitziusai. But if one comes to a place of emes, then it doesn't make any difference. Going to kill me, you're not going to kill me. They say the famous story of the Balatanya, that he was in jail and they were trying to get information from him about his Kehillah, and he didn't want to give that information, and the fellow took out a gun to scare him and held it to him. He says, there's ways of getting information. And the Balatanya said, that way is for you who you only have one world. I've got 7 of them. This doesn't mean anything to me. That's a madrega. It's a madrega where, life, this world, the next world. But olam haba behove means that I'm living an olam haba dika life in the present. One more sentence from Reish Ches. Umisha zochel hazeh, if somebody comes to this madrega, lo shaykh loimer muftach, he's not a man of faith. Ela shehu zeh ben olam haba nirmaz be'etzba v'nikar la'ayin. These words are nirmaz be'etzva v'nikar la'ayin. The amunah, or let's put it better, the yediyas Hashem is tangible. The yediyas Hashem is nirmaz be'etzva, you can point to it, v'nikar la'ayin, and he can see it. It means there's a madrega of, I'll give you a mashal in Chazal. The Chazal say, Kol hanavim nisnavu b'koi. Moshe Rabbeinu nisnavu b'zeh. Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem. Koi amar Hashem, zeh hadavar. I don't know if it's a Gemara, I think it's a Sifri. Pirush HaDvarim is that Koi means kimozeh. It's a dimyan. Like I can give you the idea. Navi, Yeshayahu a Navi, Yecheskel a Navi. The Nevi'im have a Nevuah. The Nevuah is when the Navi is going to explain his Nevuah. I'm imagining, I've never had a Nevuah, but it's something like trying to explain to somebody what you dreamt. It's Koyamar Hashem. This is what Ko is Kemozeh. When Moshe Rabbeinu had a nevuah, Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem. Nirmaz be'etzba v'nikar ba'ayin. Why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu, kol hanaviyim nisnavu ba'aspaklaria she'ena me'ira. Moshe Rabbeinu was misnave ba'aspaklaria me'ira. Aspaklaria, what does that word mean? Lens, specs. I can't hear.
The lashon nirmaz be'etzba sounds like it's not good. It's like a remnant.
I don't think so. Nirmaz be'etzba means you can show somebody it with your finger. What? Zeh keli anvei. Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem. And that, he says, is nikar la'ayin. It's a different level of re'iyah. It has to do with seeing. In the Gemara, by the way, when the Gemara wants to make a point, the Gemara says, Toshma, come and listen. Shema there means Havana. When the Zohar wants to make a point, it says Tochazeh. Come see. What's the difference between Toshma and Tochazeh? Well, Shmi is a deduction. Chazeh means you see it. Kachazeh. It's a Metzias. Kachazeh. Moshe Rabbeinu, Niskasha, the Rashi brings it, Niskasha b'maisa menorah. Or he was also, he didn't chop the menorah. He didn't chop the machzas hashekel. What's not to chop about a menorah? Go to Bezalel Art School, or go to Bezalel himself, and ask him what's a menorah. Achaharalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu menorah shel zav. Showed him a matbeah shel zav. Haralei. It had to be Zeh Hadover Asher Tziva Hashem. It had to come to the level of Tochazeh.
What was Yirmaz Ba'etzba?
Yedias Hashem.
For the person?
You talk about in the Sifri or what I'm... Or,
No, what the Tzadok said.
when you get to the place of Nefesh to the place of leyv, the place of Amunah to Emes, you're coming to a place of Nirmas Ba'etzma v'Nikirlai. That's what he says.
That the person knows Hashem as if Hashem was Yirmaz Ba'etzba?
Yeah.
It sounds like the... It says...
This is Hashem. Zakeli Van Veg.
Who's Ben Olam Haba? It sounds like the person himself is all like the fact that he is a Ben Olam Haba is.
The way I understand it is that it means that if a person comes to the level in this world, B'Hova, of being a Ben Olam Haba, so your Yedias Hashem are Nirmaz Ba'etzba v'Nikir Layim.
For the person.
Person. Tell you something gewaldig that mentioned the Gemara before. The Gemara says that or says in Yevamis Memtes, I believe, that Yevamis Memtes is Aspaklaria Meira. That's where that comes. Aspaklaria Meira was Moshe Rabbeinu. But the Gemara says that Rabbi Yosef, who was the son of Rabbi Yeshua, I think it was Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Chalav Ingid. The Gemara says that. Where's the Gemara? Yeah. Thank you. So Rabbi Yosef got sick. He Ingid, which means he had, I guess, a near-death experience. I would say he had a death experience, but he came back alive, so. No, death is permanent, I didn't know. Anyways, in Gid, now he wakes up, comes out of his coma or whatever it was. And his father says to him, Yafet, my chazisa, what did you see? And he says, famously, Olam Hafuch Ra'isi. Now, we all believe in Olam Haba, but we don't see Olam Haba because the Gemara says, Kol HaNeviim Nisnavu Yemos HaMashiach. But when it comes to being, for the Nevi'im to explain Olam Haba, they couldn't do it because Ayin Le'rasa Elikim. Because nobody saw Olam Haba, nobody's been there and back. So nobody could explain Olam Haba in the Bechina of Nikir La'ayin. Nobody was able to explain ever, even the Nevi'im, were able to explain what Olam Haba looks like. We can learn about it. We can learn the Mar Nevuchim. We can look at Chazals. We can look at Midrashim. But nobody's going to know exactly what's going on in Olam Haba. Who's walking around? How are they walking around? What's going on? Nobody knows. Until Rabbi Yosef had his death experience. And his father, Rabbi Yeshua, took advantage of this son the moment of his waking up, and instead of making a l'chaim, he says to him, "Ma chazisa." What did you see? Did you see a light coming at you? Did you see all kinds of things you could see? Ma chazisa, because nobody ever saw this. Nobody's described this before. Here's an opportunity. Ma chazisa. Olam hafach ra'isi. So there was an Indian of, he had access for the moment, Rabbi Yeshua, to a world which is ayin leiras elikim zulasech. So this is I think that's an example of olam haba bahove. And like Agav, the answer of his answer to his father was olam hafuk reisi, yoinim lamata tachtoinim lamala. Like it was like the whole thing was a mirror upside down. So hagufa tzarich bir. But the point is that there was a chizayin. So had a thought that when we say the Nevi'im on Shabbos, we do Haftarah. So the brachas. Do you have a sitter sitting here? Thank you very much. I once actually heard the following from Rabbi Yaacov Kamenetsky. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher bachar b'neviim tovim. Hashem chose good neviim. V'ratza b'divreihem hane'emarim be'emes. What does that mean? I say this every week, yeah? Asher bachar b'neviim tovim. Okay, Yeshayahu, you are a good man. Nevi'im tovim. V'ratza b'divreihem, as I heard from Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, Zatzal, ratza b'divreihem, it was always subject to their interpretation. The nevuah itself was subject to them interpreting what they saw. And ratza b'divreihem, Hashem likes their words. Their taich is good. Hanemarim be'emes. They were said be'emes. Abocher b'Torah Moshe Avdoi b'Yisrael Amai uvinviei ho'emes. What's Tzadok? So what's nevi'ei emes?
They saw.
What?
Emes means they saw.
Emes. Emes has to do with re'iyah. But they saw due to interpretation. So we're going to learn here there are different levels of seeing. But what I just want to be machalik here is the difference between toshma and tochazeh, the difference between emunah and emes, the difference between the nevuah Moshe Rabbeinu aspaklaria meira. How does the word speculate fit into this? Aspaklaria meira, aspaklaria she'ena meira. The difference between seeing olam haba, which is olam, and behove, olam haba, which is behove, which is the world of emes, and seeing olam haza, which Chazal called the alma d'shikra. It's all fake. So what all of this is, says Reb Tzadok, is the process of going from the nefesh to the neshama. I just want to say that the Kehillas Shivtei Yeshurun, which is written by the Ramchal, I once heard from my Rebbe, he said that two mistakes that people make is that they think Kehillas Yeshurun and Tomer Dvara are Musar Svarim and they're Sifrei Kabbalah. Kehillas Yeshurun is the Ramchal. Historically, it's interesting because when he was banned from writing Kabbalah, he wrote the Kehillas Yeshurun, which was Kabbalah in disguise. So, what's the first words? First words. Next. Lehisbarer ulehisames. Proud of you. You went to pieces. I don't know who it was. One of the Dolev said, I couldn't go further. One of the Dolev said, like, that's already like a whole avodah. So I share that sentiment. difficult to go further. But I just want to be medayik in the lashon over here. Lisbarer ulehisames. That's Svei Madrigas. Lisbarer ulehisames. Lisbarer is to be mevarer. And lisames is when it becomes an emes. Zeh hadover asher tziva Hashem. It's so we get our amunah to a place. Yeah. Tochazeh. Koach is all about this. Yeah. Let me say something I've said in the past. Let me say it deeper. Everybody knows the story of Nachamish Gamzu. He's called Nachamish Gamzu because comes from a city called Gamzu. That's why he's called Nachamish Gamzu. But the Gemara says that it was fitting for him to be called Nachamish Gamzu because he would always say Gamzu l'toy. That's the pshat in Nachamish Gamzu. Yizish Gamzu means he came from the city of Gamzu. He always said Gamzu l'toy. It's like, I remember when I was a kid, our Rav was a bit in Buffalo. We used to, Buffalo, Beis, Ayin, Pei, Lamed, Hey. So it's about Buffalo, so he was always wrote Hachoisem ba'afela. Talk about snow, and talk about darkness, and no Yiddishkeit. Hachoisem, that was Rav Zuckerman, Tzidkas Hatzadik. But Choisem ba'af, he writes it if you look at the old Pardes books and every... so he was an ish ba'afela, that's what he called himself. He was an ish ba'afela, me too. But Nachamish Gamzu. So the Gemara tells us that he was a double amputee, and he lost both arms, and he was blind and two eyes, and v'hayadar b'dira ru'ah, is that the lashon of the Gemara? His house was shaking every time there would be a ruach, and his bed was on stilts. The Gemara says so that the bugs or the rats or whatever shouldn't climb up his bed. And it would say Gamzu l'tayva. The Talmud of Nachamish Gamzu, one of the Rabbeim of Rabbi Akiva was Nachamish Gamzu. And Rabbi Akiva repeated in his life, one of his sayings were, Kol man David Rachmana l'tavav, same sentiment. Kol man David Rachmana l'tavav, everything Hashem does is for good. Gamzu l'tayva, in Aramaic. The Rishonim asked the Kasha, if Rabbi Akiva was a Talmud of Nachamish Gamzu lo'olam yomer adam bilshein rabbi, why didn't he just say Gamzu l'tayva? Would he have to make it so fancy? Kol man David Rachmana l'tavav. Anybody who's understanding Kol man David Rachmana l'tavav understood Gamzu l'tayva. It's three simple words. Gamzu l'tayva. Why did he change the lashon? So I heard, I'm not sure where I heard, but Shamati, that it was the honesty in Madrega that we're talking about. Where the Madrega of Rabbi Akiva was that, look, everything is for the best. This doesn't seem, the whole story of Rabbi Akiva, it doesn't seem like it's a good thing. Now you'll see it's a good thing. This is true of his story with the fire, and it's true of his life. This is your attitude for life. He couldn't look at Rabbi Akiva. I shudder when I say, but I'm just saying today to learn. It's not that he looked at the thing that was happening to him at that moment and he said, "Oh, that's a good thing." He said, "That's good. It'll end up being good." Kol man da'avid rachmana. L'tav of it. He's doing it for good. It's all for my good. Is it good? It's for my good. Mashen kein loshen rabbi. Gam zu l'taiva. Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem. There was no koi, it was zeh. Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem. It was bar nikar la'ayin Nirmaz be'etzba. To Nachum Ish Gamzu, he's looking at those stilts holding up his bed with his blind eyes, and he's saying, Gamzu l'toiva. And he's appreciating, by the way, himself. Meaning, not just he's appreciating Hashem, he's appreciating his situation. He says, they said, let's take you out. There's a storm. Let's take you out. The house is going to fall on top of you. Kol zman shani babayis ein abayis noifel. That was what he said. Kol zman shani babayis. Listen, Harab Nachum Ish Gamzu, doesn't look like you have such good luck. What says? Kol zman shani babayis ein abayis noifel. He understood. He had a Ruach HaKodesh to understand that he has to live. And he has to live his life this way. And Gamzu l'taiva, and he knew that didn't include the roof falling on top of him and killing him. But the point I'm making is that we have the higher madrega. So we're going. Let's do the quick chazar before I close the sefer here. We're going from nefesh to ruach to neshama. We're going from emunah to emes to machshava. Machshava means, I want to end with one thing. I just wanted to show you something. I didn't know where the sefer is here, so I printed it out. But this is this very interesting thing. The Reb Nachman Breslover, in the sefer Sichos Haran, Siman Reish Yud Zayin, underlined in my sefer that I can't find. I'll just read you this couple of sentences here. Reb Nachman writes, Isa b'sefer echad. It says in a certain sefer, Shema shemuva hamachakrim raya. Machakrim are the philosophers. The philosophers, he means, by the way, the Rambam, Mar Nevuchim, the Rabbi Yosef Albo, Derech HaChakira. And the Machakrim, in the time of the Rambam, were very adamant that this has to be part of the curriculum. Chakira. You have to be able to prove intellectually that there's Hashem. Reb Nachman says they bring a raya, mipasik v'yadato hayoim v'ashevoysa olavavecha. Because it says, shtetach v'yadato hayoim, you have to have yediyah. So yediyah means you have to have chakira. Shetzrichen ladas oisa yisparach al pi chakiros. Says Reb Nachman, zeh perish makas hakaroyim, mikas hakaroyim. The pshat is a Karaite pshat. Shehem mefarshim pasuk zekach. They're taking the pasuk literally. Shetzrichen ladas so yisparach al pi chakiros. Avol ha'emes loikein. Listen. Ki be'emes ha'ikir ladas oisa yisparach u'rak al yedei amunah shalemha. What is the das that we're talking about, that Hashem's talking about? What he says, v'yadata is Hashem aleikecha. He's not talking about you're a philosopher. Okay, be a philosopher. But the mitzvah v'yadata is to be able to take emunah and turn it into emes. To be ma'ames sheyispara v'yisames hadavar. That's what the Torah is talking about. He says, shal yedei zeh zoichen acher kach l'das v'hasaga gedola b'yedias remamusa yisbarach shmai. That's the pshat. He says, ve'irastich li la'olam ve'irastich li b'emunah v'yadata es Hashem. Ube'emes, ikar ha'perish ha'pashut shel psukim elo ha'mazhirim l'dasei sayisbarach going v'yadat, all these psukim. V'yadata hayoim v'ashivois ha'levecha da'es alekei avicha v'avadeyu. It says that in Divrei Yamim. Du'u ki Hashem hu elikim. It says in Tehillim Perek Kuf. Ikar hazara zuhi kichu zois bedatchem. Heitev. Internalize it. Bima amet. What is? Make it real. עד שיהיה כושר וחזק בדעתכם ולבבכם בכל עת. וזה וידעת השם והשיבויס לבבך. כי זה עיקר שלמוס הידיעה. What does ידיעה mean? ידיעה כשמקשרים הדס על הלב, לידע בליבוי היטב כי השם הוא אלוקים. מקשרים, listen to the words, מקשרים הדס אל הלב. You have attached your mind to your heart. You've got all the way through. לידע בליבוי היטב כי השם הוא אלוקים. כי בכל עת שמשמשנו זיסל בלבבי היטב כי השם אלוקים בבטל נפל פחתא ומוסא, etc. And he goes on to talk about philosophy. Listen, it doesn't mean like that there's no value to an Arachim seminar. But it also is true, everybody knows, that people go to a seminar and they hear all the proofs of God and they say, wow, and then they drive home on Shabbos. So makara. The answer is that that's one madrega, but v'hashevaisel v'avecha, to come to the place of emes, where we know what we're seeing, we know what we're learning, and we internalize it to the point of emes. Zakvar mashu acher. And that's, okay, I'm over time, so I will stop here. Although even I just opened up a whole new.